I like to make the comparison between a teacher and a professor when I talk about my role in the Splatoon community. A professor is someone who is a foremost leading expert in the field. Like, they're someone who, you take this tiny slice out of the large pie that is human knowledge. This like paper thin thing that's very specific. And a professor is someone who knows that tiny, really specific slice of the human experience better than just about anybody else on the planet. There's like them and like 2 other experts on Earth, from different countries, and they all talk to each other, and they're the ones who you go to if you really want to know that one very specific thing. So they obviously have a very strong generalist grounding, but they're the ones who are out there pushing human knowledge forward and bringing that back to students, based on their contract with the universities. A teacher, on the other hand, is someone who's a bit more of a generalist. They will still be, keeping relatively current in the field and everything. They'll be reading maybe the sorts of things that the professors are churning out. So they'll maybe be keeping up with those papers and whatnot. But they're also more concerned at a certain point, not with the field itself, but with how their students are going to learn the field. Because a 9th grader is not going to be like the world's leading foremost expert on just about anything most of the time. More often, what the teachers need to figure out is, what are the students going to screw up on the route towards the level of knowledge that I have? Like, the teacher is going to have a level of knowledge that's, several years beyond what they're ever going to need in the classroom, and that's good enough. At that point, they can stop, because what they really need to become experts in is not the field, but what the students are going to screw up on their process of learning the field. So they're going to know maybe what their 9th grade students got wrong on the quiz from last year, because they had 180 students take it that year. And so now they know what it is that they're going to be, good at, what it is they're going to be struggling with, and they know how to help them through those particular struggles, because they can anticipate those struggles because they've seen them before. They know what the thought process looks like going from point A to point B, and that step of the process is what a teacher's really an expert at. So you look at my work in the Splatoon community, take the how to get out of ranked videos. Those are videos where I looked at someone at C rank. I looked at, multiple matches of C rank, and I just took down a list of what mistakes people were making. And I took those lists and thought, okay, how can I break these down into bullet points and teach them to people so that they don't make these mistakes and they can move up to the next level? In terms of getting someone from C rank to S+, I do consider myself an expert on that, like one of the foremost, most knowledgeable people in the community about how to get someone through that particular gap in skill levels. But when you get up to my level and higher, now my knowledge is starting to break down, because the professors of the community are the top players. They're the ones who are out there in +1 scrims, the people who are playing against the best players in the world in tournament and trying to figure out how their weapon comps can beat them, because they have the mechanical skill and the decision-making processes streamlined so well that they're actually capable of doing that as long as they find the right strategy. And so that's where the metagame is really evolving. That's where we are expanding the furthest reaches of human knowledge in our scene. I'm not a part of those scrims. I see the result of those scrims by going and analyzing a tournament every month or something. But if you want up-to-date information on how a certain weapon is playing, if you want to know what the metagame is going to look like in 2 weeks from now, you're better off having contact with the professors. You're better off finding someone who is an expert on that weapon and asking them a very specific individual question. I am, an analyst to the degree that people will put me on stream and I'll explain what was going on in the game at a level that a lot of people in the audience can learn from. But the best player to describe what's going on in a top-level game is always going to be the top-level player who's playing in that game. Like, that's the real commentator's curse. the people who are most qualified to commentate that game are already playing in it. They're still in the tournament. They are unavailable because they're good enough to still be unavailable and not be knocked out of the bracket. So I want people to take my content with that perspective in mind, that yes, I am a teacher, and I consider myself to be a pretty good teacher. But if you're looking for a professor, you probably are better off seeking out someone with a more specific and higher level knowledge base than the one that I have.